Hello, everyone. This is Greg, and welcome. We are at the beautiful podcast studio that is in beautiful Roswell, Georgia. Thank you for joining us today. We have a very important topic today about home financing. How do you go about selecting a good lender, and why should you select a good lender? And I'm going to talk about that, but I'm also bringing in two experts. These are real estate people that are at the very, very top of their profession, and I want them to come in and they're going to tell you a little bit about why it's important and how to select that person. But first, let me get started with just a couple things, and that is what to look for and what to watch out for. So some of the basics. For most of us, buying a home is the single largest financial transaction we're going to do. And yet, some people treat it as though they're shopping for trash bags or pet food online. Well, come on, really? I mean, I understand. We shop for pet food, but we're not going to do that when we're going for home financing. So what do? Now, is it normal, is it typical, and is it okay to go about Googling for mortgage info? And on the surface of that, I would tell you that's not a bad idea. But I will warn everyone, try to find Google sites with the same question where you can get the same answer. The other thing is, most sites don't give you the full answer. It's not that they give you misinformation, but they don't give you the full answer. It's very difficult to get data that is accurate across all your Google sites or whatever it might be. So what I'm saying is that, just give you one example, credit. I want you to look up on mortgage sites and ask the question, will my mortgage credit report give me the same score as my bank credit report does that I just get with my bank credit card? And do they give you an explanation as to why it's not going to be the same? Something as small as that can be significant when you're shopping for a mortgage. So we're going to talk about that. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about all lenders are not created equal. And so I want to make sure we understand what are the 3 or 4 different types of lenders. There's price-based lenders, transaction-based lenders, and relationship-based lenders. None of them are bad. They're all good, but they serve a very different audience. So to get started, what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to a dear friend of mine, Amanda Cole. Amanda Cole is the broker owner of her own real estate company called Twig Nest Realty. She's a very, very large producer with an incredible and loyal client base, but that's not all. She's also a certified Dave Ramsey instructor. Amanda, welcome.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, Amanda, people watching this are looking at what do they want to do for home financing and how do they go about finding a lender and why is it important? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. And the first one is, why do you think it's important that somebody selects a strong and good lender?
Well, I liked the comment that you made about, basically getting on the internet and trying to find somebody, because that just seems to be the norm right now. And I have no problem with that, except for in agreement again with your comment about this is the biggest investment most people make in their lifetimes. And so it is so important. In fact, in my opinion, Greg, the lender is the most important person in the transaction on the transaction side. In other words, that is where all your value lies.
That's a pretty powerful statement, Amanda. So, but you would know because you do a lot.
Well, and I believe it's true. I mean, anybody can go out and find a home. Anybody can have they can do it by themselves. They can have a private home inspector come. They can do that part by themselves. As far as the lending part goes, the lending part is just so very important, and not just for the lender, to become invested in the relationship, but also for the client, for the purchaser. They need to learn. This needs to be a learning experience.
Well, Amanda, let me ask you something. Amanda, let me take this one more step. What are your thoughts on how somebody should go about selecting a lender?
That's a great question. I am a big word of mouth person. I believe that reputation is an excellent thing or not. Mm-hmm. And for me personally, my business is all referral. And so when I have somebody who's looking for a lender, of course, I refer my lender. And then if they want to go off and look at something else or look at somebody else, that's all fine and good. However, it usually does not work well. And so what I tell my folks is, let's see, let me think back. You need someone you trust.
Yep.
And who knows the financing process, so that they can confirm for you and advise you that you're making good financial choices, because your industry changes every minute of the day.
So what should somebody look out for when they're selecting a lender? What are the things to look out for? We know now what to do. What should they look out for?
Mm-hmm. So some of the traits, and I'm really coming at it from the personality character side, because I believe anybody can learn anything. So if you've only been a lender for 6 months, but you have excellent character, you have good people watching over you, helping you, get you to help other people through the process, then you're ahead of the game. So in my opinion, I have a few words. They should be trustworthy, responsive, accountable, educational. In other words, they should be educating their clients on process, not selling them a process.
Oh, I love that.
And in the posture of equipping their clients, whatever that looks like. So for instance, I've sent you people before, and you come back to me and you say, you know what, Amanda, we've got to work on their credit. And this is what it looks like, and this is what it's going to take. And it's going to take, possibly 2 years to get this under control. Well, our response is, yes, we're going to work with them, whatever it takes, as long as they are taking control of it and they're willing to do the work.
Yep.
And that goes back to my point of, it's all relational, not financial.
Well, I think
if you put the relationship first, yep.
I think that's one of the big keys that I keep hearing over from others as well, is the word relationship. It is very relational. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm going to be talking about that in a few minutes when we're offline. But yeah, Amanda, before we get off the phone, is there anything else that you'd like to just tell the audience about this process?
Yes. So I just want to remind them that when you're dealing with somebody who does not know you, who has no skin in the game, right? Yep. It is very easy for them to walk away when there is conflict or when there is a tough road ahead. That's not what you want. That is not what you want. You have got to be working with somebody who is vested in your life, vested in your finances, invested in your family and what's coming down the road. And that will build, as a lender, that builds a lifelong business. Just as a real estate agent, that builds a lifelong business.
Absolutely.
As a client, you just never know, Greg. You never know what's going to come of that relationship.
That's exactly true.
The most simple form is, you've got one more excellent person in your circle, one more excellent human being in your circle. That's the very least. It only goes up from there.
Well, Amanda, I thank you. I thank you for your support over the years. I know the way that you build relationships. I know I personally try to mirror a lot of what you do, although I'm not as good at it as you are, but I try. But,
that's not true.
But anyway, thank you, Amanda. I'll let you go. You have a great day.
Thanks, Greg. I appreciate you. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Mm-hmm. Bye-bye.
Well, everybody, we are now going to bring in the next person. And the next person we've got, he's actually going to join us here. His name is Bob Clarkson. And I'll introduce Bob. While we're waiting for Bob to come on in, let me just kind of reiterate a couple things that Amanda talked about that I'm a firm believer of. One of the things she talked about is relationship. And, again, when we're buying pet food online, that's not a relationship. You and I might have a relationship with our pet. Don't get me wrong. I have a lot of pets. But when you're talking about the single biggest financial transaction in our lives, what becomes important? And I personally think, and you might agree with me. If you disagree, I'm anxious to hear from you about that. But the relationship that we have, and is it ongoing? So we're going to give a minute. Bob will be here in just a moment, and we're going to ask him the same questions I just asked Amanda so that we can get his expertise on this as well. But I want to tell you something about Bob Clarkson first. Bob is not only the number one agent in his real estate office, he was just announced as the number one agent in the state of Georgia that's not on a team. That's impressive, Bob.
Thank you.
And then the other thing I know about him is that his client base and social network are incredibly loyal. Probably the only thing I would say that his database is second to is his work ethic. Bob, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Appreciate you saying that.
So we've been talking about, is it important that people select a good, strong lender? If so, why, and maybe how to do it? So I was going to ask Bob, the first question is, why do you think it's important that people select a good, strong lender?
Man, it's vitally important to get a good lender. I mean, looking at the houses is the fun part, right? You have the hard part dealing with all these numbers. But when you're dealing with the mortgage, there's so many moving pieces. And it's a big difference on whether or not you can buy the house. And that's what it all comes down to. If you can't get the mortgage, you can't get the house. And that's what
true.
everybody wants.
Well, any thoughts on how a buyer should go about selecting a good, strong lender?
Yeah.
What do you recommend your people?
Well, I mean, so it's not a one-size-fit-all. That's what I tell everybody. There's not a one-size-fit-all lender. Not everybody's the same, just like real estate agents, any closing attorneys, everything is different. So when you're going through the mortgage process, get options. That's what I say. Get options. Talk to different lenders because, again, not one size fits all. There are different programs. There are different options. There's different rates. There are different loan programs. You know the terminology better than I do. But go out and see what your options are. So then the buyer can make the best decision for their loan and their next tenure as long as they're going to live in the house.
Okay. If a buyer is speaking to people,
Right.
what should they be looking out for? What are something that kind of should be a red flag that maybe, I don't know if I should be doing that. What would be the red flags?
There's a lot. Most buyers get really caught up in the rate, right? I only want to get this low interest rate. And there's so many programs that's all they market is the low interest rate. Behind the interest rate are so many other details, which you are so good at explaining, is what's behind the curtain. It's not just the interest rate. It's not just the origination fees. There's so many moving aspects when it comes to a loan. When you talk to a lender, ask very specific questions about the loan. And if why I like sending my clients to you is because you explain to everybody the process. You explain it without the buyer asking, and you put it in very simple terms, where a lot of other lenders will only advertise or market the rate or, whatever it may be. And there are other maybe hidden fees associated with the loan, or, there's deadlines that are missed.
Yep.
So there's a lot of moving aspects.
Okay. Bob, anything else that you'd like to add to our audience? Just something that you think is critical as they're going through this process. They're buying a home. It's the biggest transaction they've got. I made a comment at the beginning of the podcast that said, this is not like buying pet food online.
No, it's not.
I mean, I love animals. You know that.
Yes, you do. All too much.
All too much. But this is more than that. So anything you want to add?
I think it's similar to what I've said is get options. Whether it's talking to you, obviously talk to Greg, but talk to other people too, because I think you're going to be able to see the difference. There is a difference if you talk to somebody like yourself or you talk to somebody else. don't just focus on one thing. See how the process works.
Got it.
And talk to Greg.
Bob, thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Much
I appreciate
appreciate it.
Thank you.
You have just heard from two experts, Amanda and Bob. Now I want to share with you some things from my expertise. Some of you know this, some may not. I've been doing the mortgage lending industry for 33 years, and I've been blessed to do many, many things in the mortgage industry. So let me give you some pointers on things that I have witnessed over that time that may be of value to you. So in my opinion, the number one thing, and Amanda mentioned this, Bob mentioned it, number one is trust. That's what I've seen. Can you have trust in the person that you're going to be working with? Then I'm going to answer that question. How do you determine trust? Well, let me give you things. And trust does not mean you're working with a family member. Sometimes the family member may not be the best person to work with on your financing. They might be the best, but then again, they might not. So let's talk about, well, how do you develop trust? Some very quick bullet points. Number one, does the lender ask you questions about you, your goals, your concerns, or are they just asking questions about the transaction? Do you think that they are really interested in you? Do they rush you through to get to the online application link, or do they spend time getting to know you, getting to know your needs? Are they just getting you over to the online application link? Are they offering any suggestions that you may not be familiar with? You may have looked up some things. I talked about Googling before. Maybe you got some questions. Did they really ask that? What questions do you have? What have you heard? Are they doing any of that for you? And do they suggest options that might work for you? Or do you feel that for that lender, it's just another cookie cutter transaction? Through that series of those 4 bullet points, you can quickly determine trust. And as you're going to hear me say, trust your gut. That's where it's going to come from. I told you that there were 3 different types of lenders, and all of them are good, but they're very different. There's price-based lenders. They win your business based on just one thing, price. That's all they're going to talk about. Rate and the cost to get that rate. That's it. That's all they're going to talk about. They're not going to talk about options, not going to talk about you, not talk about your goals. You're going to go online, you're going to look it up. If that's what you're looking for, there are people out there that can do that for you. Is that what you want? Is that what you need? Number 2 is a transaction-based lender. Now, you got to use your gut. I said it a moment ago. Use your gut on this one a little bit. Most transaction-based lenders are very nice people. I know a bunch of them, and they are very nice people. They're friendly. But you have to ask, are they asking enough questions about you and about your needs? I go back to the whole trust discussion. Is there emphasis on you, or is there emphasis on the transaction? Are they asking enough questions about you? Then there's the relationship-based, and you heard Amanda really talk about it a lot. The relationship-based is all about you. It's all about your needs, your goals. What are the things you want to accomplish? It's not just buying a house. Most people don't realize if you put down 10 or 15%, you'll get a better rate than if you put down 20%. Is your lender even mentioning that? Is that coming up at all? In a relationship-based opportunity, your lender should be doing that. Well, I hope you have found this podcast to be of value. Please feel free to get back in touch with me if you have questions. You can email, you can call me. I'll always be available to try to help and answer questions. Last thing, please do me a favor. Please follow this podcast because you can put in information, put questions in there, and there's going to be many more podcasts coming that might be of value. So please follow if you would, please. Thank you.